Hi, I'm Jeanine Wright, and I am the CEO and co-founder of Inception AI. And I'm joined here today by Mark.
Hi, I'm Mark Stignani. I'm partner at Barnes Thornburg, and you're listening to IP Fridays podcast.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of IP Fridays. Our names are Ken Suzan and Rolf Claessen, and this is the podcast dedicated to intellectual property. It does not matter where you are from, in-house or private practice, novice or expert. We will help you stay up to date with current topics in the fields of trademarks, patents, design and copyright, discover useful tools, and much more.
I am Rolf Claessen, and together with my co-host Ken Suzan, I welcome you to episode 172 of our podcast IP Fridays. Today's interview guests are co-founder and CEO of Inception AI, Jeanine Wright, again on this podcast, and Mark Stignani, who is partner and chair of the analytics practice at Barnes Thornburg. But before the interview, I have news for you. The Unified Patent Court, UPC, ruled on February 19th that specialized insurance can cover security for legal costs. This is vital for firms as it eases litigation financing and lowers financial hurdles for patent lawsuits by removing the need for high liquid assets to enforce rights at the UPC. On February 12th, the WIPO Coordination Committee nominated Daren Tang for a second 6-year term as Director General. Tang continues modernizing the global IP system, focusing on small and medium enterprises, women, and digital transformation. His confirmation in April is considered certain. An AAFA study from February 4th reveals that 41% of tested fakes, clothing and shoes, failed safety standards. Many contain toxic chemicals like phthalates, BPA, or lead. The study highlights that counterfeiters increasingly use meta platforms to sell unsafe imitations directly to consumers. China's Intellectual Property Office, CNIPA, 2026 report announced a crackdown on bad faith patent and trademark filings. Beyond better examination quality, the agency will sanction shady IP firms and stop strategies for violating good faith to make China's IP system more ethical and innovation friendly. Now, let's hear the interview with Jeanine Wright and Mark Stignani.
Thank you, Rolf. We have two returning guests to the IP Fridays podcast. Joining me today is Jeanine Wright and Mark Stignani. Our topic for discussion: how is AI transforming the media and entertainment industries today? We look at the issues from differing perspectives. A bit about our guests. Jeanine Wright is a seasoned board member, CEO, global COO, and CFO. She's led organizations from startup to a $475 million plus revenue subsidiary of a public company. She excels in growth strategy, adopting innovative technologies, scaling operations, and financial management. Jeanine is a media and entertainment attorney and trial litigator turned technologist and qualified financial expert. She is the co-founder and CEO of Inception AI, a growing company that is paving new ground with AI-generated personalities and content through developing technology and story. Mark Stignani is a partner with Barnes Thornburg LLP and is based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. He is the chair of the Data Analytics Department with a particular emphasis on artificial intelligence, machine learning, cryptocurrency, and ESG. Mark combines the power of artificial intelligence and machine learning with his skills as a corporate and IP counsel to deliver unparalleled insights and strategies to his clients. Welcome, Jeanine and Mark, to the IP Fridays podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And fun to be back. It feels nostalgic to be here.
That's right. And you both were on the program, so it's fantastic that you're both back again. So our format, I'm going to ask a question to Jeanine or Mark, and sometimes to both of you. So that's going to be how we proceed. Let's jump right in. Jeanine, Your company creates AI-generated actors. For listeners who may not be familiar, can you briefly explain what that means and what's now possible that wasn't even 2 years ago?
Sure. Yeah, we are creating AI generated personalities. So new characters, new personalities from scratch. We design who these personalities are and will be, how they will evolve. So we give them complex backstories. We give them hopes and dreams and aspirations. We every aspect of them, their families, how they're going to evolve. And in the same way that, say, Disney designs the character for its next animated feature, or, an Electronic Arts designs a character for its next, major video game, we are doing that for these personalities. And then we are launching them into the world as podcast hosts, content creators on social platforms like YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, and even in the future, actors in feature-length films, musicians, etc.
Very fascinating. Mark, from your practice, what's the single biggest legal question or dispute you're seeing clients wrestle with when it comes to AI in media creation or entertainment?
Well, I think that, it's not just one thing, it's like four things.
Hmm.
But most of them tend to be kind of the origin story of AI data or AI tools that they use because, but for the use of AI tools trained on copyrighted materials, the tools wouldn't really exist in their current form. So a lot of my clients are wondering about, can I legally use this output if it's built upon somebody else's IP? The second flavor of that is really, is there liability being created if I take AI content that inadvertently infringes or defames or biases those? So there's the whole notion of training bias from the training materials that comes out. The third phase is really, can I really own this? Because much of the world does not really give IP rights into AI generated inventions, copyrighted materials. It's still kind of a big gray zone. Then at the end of the day, if it's an existing relationship, does my contract even contemplate this? So everything from authors' contracts on up to just use of data rights that predate AI.
Hmm. And Jeanine and Mark, a question to both of you. How would you describe where we are right now in the AI revolution in media and entertainment? Are we approaching a tipping point? And if so, what are the things we need to watch for?
Yeah, I definitely think that we're at a phase where people are starting to come to the realization that AI is, the world's most powerful creative tool. But that, storytelling and point of view is what creates demand and audiences. And AI doesn't threaten or change that, but it does mean that as people, evolve in this medium, they're very likely going to need to adopt, utilize, and figure out how to hone their craft with these AI generated content and these AI generated tooling. So this is, something that people have done certainly in the past in all sorts of ways in using new tools, and we've seen that make a significant change in the industry. So you look at the dawn of animation as a medium. You look at use of special effects, computer generated imagery in the likes of Pixar. And this is certainly like the next phase of that evolution. But because of the power of the tool and what will become the ubiquity of the tool, I think that it's pretty revolutionary and all the more necessary for people to figure out how to embrace this as part of their creative process.
Thank you, Jeanine. Mark, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I liken this historically to like the California gold rush right now because the technology is so far outpaced any of the legal frameworks that are available. And so we're just trying to shoehorn things in left and right here. So, I mean, the courts are beginning to start to engage with the foundational questions. I don't think they're quite there yet. Just noticed Anthropic got sued again by another group of people, big on music group on because the amount of downloaded works they've done. I mean, so the courts are, the courts are certainly inundated with, too many of these foundational questions. Legislatively, hard to tell. I mean, federal law, the federal government is not moving uniformly on this, other than to let the gold rush continue without much check and balance to it. Whereas states are now probably moving a lot faster. Colorado, Illinois, even Minnesota is attempting to uh, craft legislation and limitations on what you can do with content and where to go with it. So I mean, the things we need to watch for are, any of the fair use decisions coming out here. Some of the SAG-AFTRA contract clauses, and again, the federal government. I got a big shrug going as to what they're actually going to come up with here in the next 90 to 100 days. So, but I think they'll be forced into doing something sooner than later.
Okay, let's jump into the topic of the rise of generative content pipelines. My first question to Jeanine: studios and production companies are now building what some call generative content pipelines. This is where AI systems produce everything from scripts to visual effects to voice performances. What efficiencies and creative possibilities does this unlock for the industry?
Yeah, so this is quite a bit of what we do. And if I could help pull the curtain back and explain a little bit, I
That'd be
think
great.
there's this assumption that, somebody's just sitting behind a machine pushing a button and out pops, what it is that we're producing. There's actually quite a bit of humans still in the loop in the process. Half of my team is creators, the other half of my team is the technologists. And those creators are working largely at what we describe as the tip of the spear. So they're, of course, coming up with the concepts of who are these personalities, what are these personalities, characters, backgrounds going to be, a lot of like rich personality development. And then they're creating, like, what are the formats, what are the kind of story arcs, what is the kinds of content that this character wants to tell, and what are the audiences they're desiring to reach and what's most going to resonate with them. And then what we built internally is what we refer to as an AI orchestration layer. So that allows us to pull from basically all of the different models, and then all of these different really cool AI tools, and put those together in such a way and combine those in such a way that we can have the kind of output that our creative team envisions for what they want it to be. And at the end of the day, what the stack looks like for, say, a long form audio drama, like the combination of LLMs that we're going to use in different parts of scripting and production and, ideating and all of that, and the kinds of tooling that we use to actually, make it and get it to sound good and have the kinds of personality characteristics that we want to be in an authentic voice for a podcast, is going to be different than the tech stack and the tool stack that we might use for, a short form Instagram beauty tip reel. And so there's a lot of art in being able to pull all of these tools together to get them to do exactly what you want them to do. But I think the second part of your question is just as interesting as the first. I mean, what possibilities is this unlocking? So, of course, you're finding efficiencies in the creative production process. You can move faster. You can do things for, less expensive, perhaps, than you were able to do it before. But on the creator side, I think one thing that hasn't been talked about enough is how it is really like blown wide the aperture of what creators can do and can envision. So traditionally, Hollywood, podcasting, many of these businesses that become big businesses have become hit-making businesses where they need to focus on a very narrow of wide gen pop content that they think is going to get tens of millions, hundreds of millions in fans and dollars in revenue for every piece of content that they make. So the problem with that is that it really narrows the kinds of things that ultimately get made, which is why you see things happening in Hollywood like the blacklist, which is, this famous list of really exceptional content that remains unproduced, or why you see things like, 70 to 80% of the top 100 movies being based on pre-existing IP, right? Because these are such huge bets that you need to feel very confident that you're going to be able to get big, big audiences and big, big dollars from it. But with AI and really lowering the barrier to entry, lowering the costs of production and marketing, the experimentation that you can do is really, really phenomenal. So, my creative team, if they have an idea, they make it. They don't have to wring their hands through like a green lighting process of, should we, shouldn't we? Like we can make an experiment with lots of different things. We can do various different versions of something. We can see, what would this look like if I placed it in the 1800s, or what if I gave this character an Australian accent? And it's just the power of being able to have this creative partner that can ideate with you and experiment with you at rocket speed. With the creators that are embracing it, you can see how it is really fun for them to be able to have this wide of a range of possibility.
Mark, when you hear about these generative pipelines, what are the immediate red flags or concerns that come to mind from a legal standpoint? How about ethics underlying all of this?
Well, that's the number one red flag, because I mean, we are seeing not just in the entertainment industry, but at political levels, and the kind of the phrase, to turn the phrase AI slop being generated. We're seeing people's facial expressions altered. In some cases, we're seeing AI tools being misused to exploit various groups of individuals and genders and age groups. So I mean, there's a whole lot of things ethically that people are using AI for that just don't quite cover it. And especially in the entertainment industry, I mean, we're looking at a fair amount of displacement of human workers without adequate transition support, devaluation of the creative labor. I mean, the thing though that I'm always, from a technical standpoint, is AI is simply a statistical average of most everything. So it kind of devalues the benefit of having a human creator, a human contribution to it. That's the ethical side. I mean, but on the legal side, I see chain of title issues. I mean, because these are built on very questionable IP ownership stages. I mean, in most of these tools, there has been some large copying, training, and taking of copyrighted materials. Is it transformational? Maybe. But there is certainly not a chain of title, nor is there a permission granted for that training. I mentioned SAG-AFTRA earlier. I think there's a potential set of union contract aspects to this, that if many of these agreements and use of likenesses for authors and actor agreements, they weren't written with AI in mind. So that's another red flag. And also, I just think in indemnification, so if we ultimately get to a point where groups are liable for using content without previous license, then who's liable? Is the toolmaker the liable group, or the actual end user? So those are probably my top 4 red flags. But I think ethics is probably my biggest place, because just because we can do something, from an ethical standpoint, doesn't mean we should.
Yeah, if I could respond
Go
to
ahead.
both of those points. I mean, one, from a legal perspective, just to be very clear, I mean, we are always pulling from multiple different models and always pulling from multiple different sources. And we even have data sources that we license or use for single source of truth on certain pieces of information. So we're always pulling things together from multiple different sources. We also have built into our process, internal QAing and checking to make sure that we're not misappropriating the name or likeness of any existing known personality or character. We are creating original personalities. We design their voice from scratch. We design their look from scratch. So we're not, on our personality side, we're not pulling or even taking inspiration from existing intellectual property that's already out there in creating these personalities. On the ethical side, I agree. I mean, when we came out of stealth, we came out of stealth in September. There was certainly quite a bit of backlash from folks in I previously co-founded a company in the audio space. I mean, there's been many rounds of layoffs in audio and in many other parts of the entertainment industry. So I'm very sensitive to the feedback around, like, is this job displacement? I mean, I do think that the CEO of NVIDIA said it right when he said, you're not going to lose your job to AI, but you will lose your job to somebody who knows how to use AI. I think these tools are transforming the way that content is made, and that the faster that people can embrace this tooling, the more likely they're going to be having the kinds of roles that they want in content creation and storytelling in the future. And we're hiring. I'm hiring AI video creators, AI audio creators. I'm hiring AI developers. So people who are looking for those roles, I mean, please reach out to me. We would love to work with you, and we'd love to grow with you. We take the ethics very seriously. For the last few months or so, I've met regularly with an ethicist. We talk about all sorts of issues around, is designing AI generated people, good for humanity? And what about authenticity and transparency and deception? And how are we, in building in this space, going to avoid some of the problems that we've seen with things like social media and other forms of technology? So we keep that very top of mind, and we try to build on our own internal values-based system, and continue to elevate and include the humanity as part of the conversation.
Thank you, Jeanine. Jeanine, some argue that AI content pipelines will level the field for filmmaking, giving independent creators access to tools that were once available only to major studios. Is that the future you envision?
I do think that AI you will see an incredible democratization of access to technology and access to these capabilities. So I do think, rise of independent filmmakers, you won't have as many people who are sitting on a brilliant idea for the next fantastic script or movie that just cannot get it made, because they will be able to, with these tools, get something made and out there, at least to get the attention of somebody who could then decide that they want to invest in it at a studio kind of level in the future. The other thing that I think is really interesting is that I think AI will empower more niche content and more creators who can thrive in micro communities. So it used to, because of this like hit generation business model, everything needed to be made for the masses, and a lot of content for niche audiences and micro communities was neglected because there was just no way to make that content commercially viable. But now, if you can leverage AI, we make a pollen report podcast in 300 markets. Nobody would have ever made that before, but it is very valuable information, a very valuable piece of content for people who really care about the pollen in their local community. So there's all sorts of ways that being able to leverage AI is making it more accessible both to the creator and to the audience that is looking for content that truly resonates with them.
Mark, let's talk about the legal landscape. Right now, if someone creates an AI-generated performance that closely resembles a living actor without their consent, what legal recourse does that actor have?
Well, I mean, I think we can go back to the OpenAI Scarlett Johansson thing where, you know, if it's, if it's simply, if walks like a duck, feels like a duck type of aspect there, I think it's pretty straightforward that they need to walk it back. They're moving. I mean, now U.S. doesn't have moral rights, really, but there's a public visage right, if you will, and so one of the things that I find predominantly useful here is that these actors likely have rights of publicity. We'd probably have a Lanham False Endorsement Act. I mean, again, if the performance is not parody and it's so close to the original performance, then we probably have a copyright discussion. But again, all of these laws predate the use of AI in this. So, we're going to probably see new sets of law. I mean, we're probably going to see, resurrection frameworks. We'll probably have frameworks for synthetic actors and likenesses that, again, the rules just aren't there yet. So, unfortunately, your question is largely predictive as to versus well settled at this point.
Jeanine, your company works with AI actors. How do you navigate the questions of consent and likeness, compensation when creating digital performers?
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, if we were to work with a person who is an existing real life person or was an existing real life person, then we would work with them to license their name and likeness or their voice or whatever aspects of it we were going to use in creating content in partnership with them. That's not typically our business model. As I said, we're designing all of our personalities from scratch and making all of our content originally. So we've not had to do that historically. Now, the flip side is, now can I license my characters as if they're similar to living characters? Like, will I be able to license the name and likeness and voice of my AI generated personalities? I think the answer is yes, and we're already starting to do that.
Mm-hmm. Let's just switch gears into ethics and AI because I find this to be a really fascinating issue. I want to look at a hypothetical, and this is to both of you, Jeanine and Mark. An AI system creates a new performance by a beloved actor who passed away decades ago, and the actor's estate authorizes it. But the actor was known to have expressed opposition to such technology during their lifetime. Is this ethical?
Ken, this feels like a gifts, wills, and trust final exam question
It
here.
does sound like one. That's right.
Throwing me back to my law school days.
Exactly.
Yeah, I
What are
mean,
your thoughts?
It'd be interesting to see like who has the rights there. I mean, I think if you have the legal rights, and the question is around like, is it ethical to go against what you knew was somebody's wishes at the time?
Mm-hmm.
I guess the honest answer is I don't know. It would depend a lot on the circumstances of the case. I mean, if we were faced with a situation like that where there was a discrepancy, we would probably move away from doing that content out of respect for the deceased and out of a feeling that, if this person felt strongly against it, then it would be less likely that you could make that storytelling exceptional. Like that in some way that it would color it in a way that you wouldn't want in the outcome. And I feel like certainly going forward, and it's already happening, there are plenty of people, I think, who have name, likeness, voice rights that they are ready to license that wouldn't have this overhang.
Mark, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I have to kind of go back between going back to our property law rule against perpetuities, from property standpoint to, AI rights likenesses, things. So it says most of the contracts, around AI with certain or digital replica contracts that I've reviewed and have that. I mean, those generally do talk about things in perpetuity. But if it's not written down anyway for the passing of that actor and the estate is consent, that's legal. Again, is it ethical? That is the debate.
Well, gold star to you, Mark, for bringing up the rule against perpetuities. There's another one that I haven't heard for many years. This has really taken me back to my law school days.
It's a throwback.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing that's really interesting is that this technology is really so revolutionary and new that it's hard for us to even contemplate now what it is going to be in a decade, much less for people who have passed away to have contemplated what the potential for it could be today. So you could have somebody who is, perhaps a deceased musician who expressed concerns about, digital representations of themselves or, digital music while they were alive. But now, the possibility is that you could recreate, certainly I could use my technology to recreate that musician from scratch in a very detailed way, trained on tons of different available data, everything, not just like a digital twin or an image, a moving image of them, but to really like rebuild their personality from scratch so that them and their music could be reintroduced to totally new generations. In a very, respectful and authentic way to them. It's hard to know whether or not, with the understanding that that is possible, somebody who is deceased today, whether they would or would not agree to something like that. I mean, many of them might want, under those circumstances, for their music to live on. And the capability of the technology is such now that these deceased actors and actresses and musicians, I mean, they could live forever with the power of the AI technology and continue to be able to be introduced to new generations.
Yeah, it really does kind of go to the whole, is deep faking a famous actor the best way to preserve them or keep them alive? Again, that's again more of an ethical question, because I mean, the deep fakes are getting good enough right now to create huge problems with even Zoom meetings in Hong Kong, where the CFO was on a Zoom call with 5 synthetic actors who all looked like her coworkers, and they sent a big check out for based upon that Zoom meeting. So again, the technology is getting good enough to fuel and fool a lot of.
So I think that's right, Mark. But yeah. I guess I would just highlight the same way that it always has been. The ethical line isn't AI versus human. The ethical line is about deception. Like, are you deceiving people? And if people know what it is that they're getting and they're choosing to engage with it, then I think that then it isn't about the power of the technology. And in our business, we have elected, not everybody has, but we have elected to be AI transparent. So we tell people when they listen to our show, we include it in our show notes, we include it on our socials. Even when we're designing our characters to be very photorealistic, we make an extra point to make sure that people know that this is AI generated content or an AI generated personality. Like, our intention is not to deceive. And to be candid, from a business model perspective, we don't need to. I mean, there's already people who know and understand that it is AI and AI is different than people. And because it is AI, there's all sorts of things that you can do with it that you would not be able to do with a real person. We get people who ask us on the podcast side, we get all sorts of crazy, funny requests. People who say, can I text with this personality? Can I talk to them on the phone? Can they help me cook in the kitchen? Can they sing me happy birthday? Can they show up at my Zoom meeting today because I think my boss would love it? All sorts of different ways that people are wanting to engage with these characters. And now we're in the process of rolling out real-time personalities, so people will be able to engage with our personalities live. It is a totally different way that people are able to engage with content, and people can, as they choose, decide what kind of content that they want to engage with.
Jeanine and Mark, we're coming to the end of this podcast. I would love to keep talking for hours, but we have to stay to our timetable here. Last question. 5 years from now, what percentage of entertainment content do you predict will involve significant AI generation, and will audiences care about that percentage? Jeanine?
I mean, I would say 99.9%. I mean, already you're seeing, I think YouTube did a survey that it was like 90% of its top creators said that they're using AI as material components of their content creation process. So I think this will be the default way that content is created, and content that is not made with AI, there'll be special film festivals for non-AI generated content, and that will be a special separate thing than the thing that everybody is doing now.
Mark, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd go a little lower. I mean, I think Jeanine certainly is right that we're seeing, especially in the low quality content creation and like YouTube shorts and things like that, there's so much AI being pushed forward that it's even acquired an AI slop title to it. I do think that disclosure will become normalized, that the industries will be pushed to say when something is AI and when it is not. And I think it's very, very much like, do you care about quality or not? If you value the human input or the human factor in this, that there'll be an upper tier where it's AI free or low AI assisted. I mean, I think that it's going to stratify out, because I mean the stuff coming through the social media platforms right now, I mean, it's I can't be on it right now, just because it's there's just so much nonsense, and even my children, who are without much AI training at all, are just kind of it's too unbelievable for them. So I think it will become normalized, but I think that we're going to see a bunch of tiers.
Mm-hmm. Well, Jeanine and Mark, this has been a fantastic discussion of an ever-evolving field in IP law. Thank you to both of you for spending time with us today on the IP Fridays podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Appreciate your time. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. That's it for this episode. If you liked what you heard, please show us your love by visiting ipfridays.com/love and tweet a link to this show. We would be so grateful if you would do that. It would help us out to get the word out. Also, please subscribe to our podcast at ipfridays.com or on iTunes or Stitcher.com. If you have a question or want to be featured in one of the upcoming episodes, please send us your feedback at ipfridays.com/feedback. Also, please leave us a review on iTunes. You can go to ipfridays.com/iTunes and it will take you right to the correct page on iTunes. If you want to get mentioned on this podcast or even have comments within the next episode, please leave us your voicemail at ipfridays.com/voicemail. You have been listening to an episode of IP Fridays. The views expressed by the participants of this program are their own and do not represent the views of, nor are they endorsed by their respective law firms. None of the content should be considered legal advice. The IP Fridays podcast should not be construed as legal advice or legal opinion on any specific facts or circumstances. The contents of this podcast are intended for general informational purposes only, and you are urged to consult your own lawyer on any specific legal questions. As always, consult a lawyer or patent or trademark attorney. Copyright 2014, all rights reserved.